Good morning. My name is Ian Massingham. I lead developer evangelism for AWS. I'm not the focus of this talk. My name's not even on this slide, which is a kind of nice place to be. I want to introduce to you 4 guests that are going to be chatting with us this morning, which I'll do in a second. But before I do that, I just want to give a little bit of context about what this session is about. So this is the second time that we've run this developer community track here at AWS reInvent. And what we're going to be doing during the course of the day is featuring the best content and some of the best speakers from the AWS user community around the globe. So you're not going to see any AWS people on this stage today. You're going to see community members, community heroes, and other members of the AWS community joining us on stage here today. One of the ways in which these community members participate in the AWS community is to become involved with and run AWS User Groups. And that's the focus of this first session. Our approach at AWS to user groups, I think, is quite distinctive in comparison to other vendors. We have a very hands-off approach to this ecosystem. We provide support in the background to try to make the passionate and vocal members of the AWS community successful in catalyzing the communities that they work with around the globe. And we have user groups today, as you can see on this map, literally all over the planet. And this is a community that is also growing extremely quickly. I hope Sebastian will talk about some of the scale-up activities that we've seen in his geography in South America in the course of the session today. So what we want to do really in this session is try and share some insights about what the benefits are for participants in AWS user groups, what you might see if you choose to participate in one, hopefully motivate you to become involved if you're not already involved in one of these groups, maybe motivate you to start a group if there's not one in your local area. And at the end of the session, we'll give you some tricks and tips really that you can use to get started, how to get in contact with us, and access some of the support that we can provide to you if you do want to start your own user group. And of course, if you want to participate in one, then meetup.com, conversations with some of the individuals that we have on stage. Great place to get started in participating in a local user group. So, who do we have? I'm not going to do this bit. I'm going to turn the conversation over now. So, there's 4 photos on the slide here that you can see. I'd just like each member of the panel just to quickly introduce themselves. Maybe if you could also talk a little bit about what motivated you to get involved with the AWS user community and how you got involved in running a user group. I think that'd be a really interesting bit of context just to kick off the discussion with as well. So Sebastian.
Okay. Hola. My name is Sebastian. Networking different people from different companies with different problems. We're getting information, and a lot of knowledge was being able to share between people which, if it wasn't for the meetup, they wouldn't get together. And that was amazing. We got over 1,000 members right now. We're hosting meetup pretty much every other month. And this year we started something with a good friend from Argentina who's actually living in the UK, but he's from Argentina, called Fernando. We started a movement called AWS en Español, which is translation for AWS in Spanish. We found that there's a lack of resources in Spanish that we wanted to get to help other communities spread. So we created a community of communities, a group of groups. And we started getting together with different user groups from all over Latin America, including Mexico, Colombia, Chile, Argentina, and stuff like that. So we got to spread whatever we were doing, spread the knowledge through the different meetups we did with people all around Latin America and Spain. So it really helped us for other people in small cities, in different places where there were no user group at all, to just got the idea, hey, I want to do this in my city. I think we can help out. And also allow us to get a lot of original content from different people, get more people to help us do what we were doing alone, and get to help each other. I mean, it's been really cool.
Great. We'll return back and talk a little bit about some of the benefits that participants get out of their involvement in these groups later on. Let's continue with the introduction. So, John, you're from San Francisco, right? So a different part of the world. Can you give us your story? How did you get started running a user group, and what's the characteristics of your user group? I mean, that's a hotbed of technological innovation, of course. So I'm guessing that plays a role in the kind of people that come along.
Well, yeah, I come from San Francisco. In fact, mine is not the only meetup there. There's quite a few meetups in San Francisco. Each of them have over 2,000 members. The way I got started with this meetup was actually Amazon started the meetup a few years ago, and then they let it kind of expire or something. And when meetup organizers step down, it gives the opportunity for members to take over the helm. And I immediately jumped in at this opportunity because I know meetups are a great way to meet people, get free dinners, and generally, get more knowledge and opens job opportunities. In fact, I work as a cloud steward at Intuit. I'm pretty sure I got hired. I was like kind of poached because I was running this meetup group. That's it for the introduction. I'll let the others talk.
So Tak, you're from Thailand.
Yes.
Yeah, a different part of the world again, and I imagine kind of like the opposite from San Francisco, really. Probably from outside of Southeast Asia, you wouldn't necessarily regard that as an area where there's a lot of AWS users, but you're running a user group there, so I guess there are. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you got started with the group.
Oh, yes. Okay, hi, I'm Tak. In Thailand, our user group started from 2 years ago. Our one and first meetup, we just have only 10 people. But now we can build it like 80, 200 for one per meetup. Now our member is about 4,000. Why we start our user group, it's like in Thailand, AWS Cloud is quite new thing. And when we have to start it, at first I'm also like the developer and have challenges to use AWS. The hardest thing I found that it's very hard for newbie one to read the document and can imagine how to use. And luckily, in our company, we have many companies together. So we have a little community that can share each other the new thing. So then when AWS asks us, can you help us to create like a user group in Thailand? We say, yes, why not? Because if you have the community, you can build more developers to be the creator, and they feel like they have a friend who can share and can giving and learn many things together. That's how we build it up AWS User Group in Thailand.
Excellent, excellent. Now, Jason's sitting at the end of there. Jason and I must disclose we've known each other for quite a long time. And Jason, he runs a user group network. So in Ireland, there are several user groups in different cities. Dublin, Belfast, occasional meetups in other cities as well. And Jason and his co-founder have a little empire of user groups across the island of Ireland. But it didn't start like that, did it? So maybe you can give a little bit of context into how you got started. You've got quite an interesting story. You've scaled something today, which is pretty big as well. But I think you'd be interested for the audience to hear, first of all, about how did you get into running the user group in Dublin?
Sure. Hi, Jason O'Connell is my name. Nice to be here. Yeah, we started off really small with maybe 10 members. I worked for a telco at one stage called Aircom. They were like the AT&T in Ireland, the incumbent telco. And we built a cloud practice within the telco. So as a bolt-on to that, we decided, why don't we have a beer and pizza evening at the telco headquarters? And we did that about 5 years ago. 4 or 5 people showed up, and it was a good start. And we did that for maybe a year, and it grew from, say, 10, 20, 30. Probably maximum we ever got was maybe 30 or 40 people at the meetup. And it was very kind of the standard meetup, beer and pizza. And it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like it was really moving the whole concept of what a community was. And it didn't seem to be doing AWS a service either, because for such an innovative, customer-focused cloud platform, we really wanted the user group to be something different. So we kind of parked the idea of the smaller meetup for a while. We went into a kind of having no meetups for maybe 6 months, and we huddled together and we thought, how do we actually make this really, really good? And we broke away from Aircom, from the telco, and we made it totally independent with no corporate sponsor, no corporate headquarters, and no pizza rule. So we said, no more pizza. We're only going to have cool meetups from now on. So we we evolved from there, and it's taken us on a journey. At times quite challenging, but we've built up now to over 3,000 members within our group in a pretty small country in Dublin. But we're very lucky in some ways. We're geographically lucky because we've a lot of support in Europe and a lot of support in Dublin. But now we're in a rock and roll venue, so we have proper sound, we have a grungy kind of vibe, and we've discovered that actually what people want is good tech talks, but they also want to hang out together because developers and people involved 9 to 5 in their jobs, they want something a bit social to go to. So one of the most popular things at our meetups is the networking break where everyone just hangs out, has a beer and enjoys it. And it's hard to get them back to their seats for the next couple of talks. So people like communities, they feel that they want to be part of something. So we've taken it on a little journey. We can go into a bit more detail on that, on how we did that.
I think the descriptions that you've each given there really reflect the diversity that we have across the community. You've all got quite different stories. Your user groups are all user groups, but actually they all have their own unique flavor and do something slightly different for the community. And I really want to spend the majority of the rest of the time in this session focusing on that, focusing on what participants get out of being involved in these kinds of communities. I think it's really interesting area to explore. My own perspective is that I think actually different individuals have different motivations for wanting to be involved in these kinds of communities. So if you could each share 2 or 3 benefits that you feel that your participants, your members, get out of being involved in the community, I'd be really interested in your take on that. But we'll just go down the line again with that question. So what do you think are the motivating factors that make individuals want to give up their evenings or give up their online time in the case of AWS on Espanol and be involved in this community? What do they get out of it?
If I just got to name 2 things, I would say the first would be free consulting. I mean, we get a lot of people with different problems they have in real life, in their own jobs, on their jobs. And they get to share those problems with other people that might be more experienced, or maybe they're just in the same situation, they had the same issue before, and they already know how to solve it. So they get answers to their own problems without wasting a lot of time Googling around, stuff like that. And the second, I would say what John said a few minutes ago, it's a really big hiring opportunity for companies. It's a really big opportunity for showcase what you know, what you've been doing, and to get other people interested in what value you can add to their companies. I would say that's the main 2 things for us.
What about you, John? Anything different beyond those?
No, I don't feel different. That's definitely true. But I would also focus on the opposite side. Sebastian said free consulting, right? You get information, you get ideas from other people who have experience. I'm looking at it from the perspective of the person who's giving this information away. Yep. It's a great opportunity for you to showcase your knowledge, so that there's always people looking to hire people. Right? If you don't want to work as an employee, but you want to do consulting work, you can actually show that you're knowledgeable about AWS services, so that people will come to you and try to hire you. And also, there are certain, for example, this week you're working on something that you cannot solve because you couldn't find anything on the documentation, you couldn't find anything in help groups. If you go that evening to a meetup and say, hey, I have this issue I'm working on. Does anybody know how to solve this? More than likely, there will be somebody who's already done it. Yep. So that's a very quick response. You can actually open your laptop and start working on it right then and there and get your solution, things like that. That's a great opportunity.
Anything to add?
Okay. For me, I think it's another way that you have a new idea about the thing. Such like one of our meetup is about the IoT, and we got 2 speakers, one from Toyota to show, and they represent our idea about IoT that they do about the mapping and can collect the data about the car. At the end of the day, I found that many people have more idea about how to do the project about IoT, and also with the company, they got a new hire. That is a good thing. And after that, we come back, and our group is still say that they love learn more about the IoT, and we got the specialist from AWS come to talk for us about that. I think the good feedback is they feel like when they come to join the meetup, they meet many people that have a good knowledge or can give him a good technique they can do with his job.
Yeah, when discussing participation in meetup groups with brand new customers, one of the things I'll often say is that you're getting unfiltered feedback about how solid AWS services are or not, and how effective they are or not. And it's not sort of through any sort of rose-tinted glass or necessarily stage managed in any way. And I think that's what you're saying, that it's kind of direct peer-to-peer support, and it's true. The feedback that you get is genuinely very accurate.
Yes, and like you can grow up your own network through our network. And in the end of the day, I felt like everyone become to friends, and they can talk to each other after the section.
Yeah. So Jason, what about you for top 2 benefits that you see for participants?
Yeah.
Apart from the excellent sandwiches.
We've quality control in our sandwiches, all right. Yeah. One of the most popular aspects of the user groups and the feedback we get from our members is we have a feature at the beginning of the meetup, which is the month in AWS. So it's like a monthly roundup of all the latest features and news, and takes up the first, say, 25 minutes of the meetup. And generally, someone from AWS might be in town, and they help us out, or a local solution architect who can speak. And we just go through it, because it's such a moving feast of new features. It's happening on a weekly basis, really, and that's the most popular. I think it's one of the main reasons people go, is to get what's the latest update. But one thing we discovered is that you can't have a very generic meetup after a while. So Amazon is such a broad church, there's so much going on, that we've decided over the last year or so we're specializing the meetups more and more. So we have a theme for each meetup. Instead of just being a general AWS discussion and a couple of presentations, it'll be either serverless or IoT or robotics or AI or whatever's cool at the time. And if we can get enough speakers that are on a similar theme. But definitely, what's going on that month is the highlight.
Yeah, good. So that's about the members participating in receive mode, if you want. So listening to content and maybe interacting on a peer-to-peer basis with other participants. There's another big dimension here, though, of course, which is someone has to deliver the content. Okay, and in most cases, in my experience anyway, it's not AWS people that are up front talking at these events. There's some of that, but it's not by no means the majority of the content coming from AWS. Most of the content comes from community members. It is genuinely peer-to-peer sharing. So what about those speakers? What is it that you feel motivates a community participant to turn into a community leader, get up at the front of the room and start talking about a challenge they've come, or maybe a challenge that they haven't overcome yet, and be that focal point and start delivering content? Do you have a view on that, Sebastian? What is it that you think the value proposition is really for community members to speak at these events?
I would say the main motivator for speaking or participating actively in a community group might be pride. You feel proud of what you're doing on your day-to-day job. You feel proud of the way you solve a complex situation in the most efficient way, wasting less amount of resources. And you want to share that with other people. First, to get your idea validated, to get other people that can prove that what you did is the right way to do. But also to get different point of view, different approaches to what you were thinking at the time, and maybe on your second iteration you can get an improved version of what you did. And we get a lot of that, of people that showcase a solution or a project they are working on. And during the networking or the Q&A, they get lots of, as you say, unfiltered feedback from the community. And then they go and work again on that. And we had speakers presenting 2 or 3 iterations of what they did in the course of 1 or 2 years. And it's really interesting to contrast the first time they spoke and they told us what they were working on, and the last time they did, and how they were able to transform their solution thanks to the community feedback and what they learned from each other.
That's great. John?
Well, in addition to what Sebastian was saying, some instead of just repeating about their project, many speakers can take this as an opportunity at meetups to practice their speech for a bigger conference like reInvent or the Community Day that they want to, or some other conference they're going to, because our meetups are not always just focused completely on AWS. AWS is just a tool, but you want to get other things done, right? Yep. So if you want to talk to a much larger audience about the work you're doing or the work that can benefit them, this is a great place for them to come and talk. Also, another benefit that the speaker gets is, like Tak was saying, there's a lot of discussions that happen before and after the meetup. Half an hour before, while you're having your drinks and snacks, and also after the meetup when you want to talk. People want to talk to each other, of course, but they're also more interested in talking to the speaker itself because they want to get more deep into in the discussion that was happening. So that's actually a benefit for speakers to come and talk at meetups.
Okay, awesome.
Yes. Actually, for us in Thailand, our meetup can divide it into two main teams. The one is the business team. That we have the speaker from the business field, right? From some startup who are the co-founder of the startup, and another part is the developer team. That we have the developer from many companies to talk. And for the business part, when they come to tell their experience about when they use AWS, they can also like promotion for promote their business, and also as a recruit many new developers who are interested in their business. In the same way, they can find many people that can talk with him after they speak and after our meetup, because it's like they can have a new partner. And for the developer, I think they feel proud. Like you say, they can come up and speak what they are really good with it. And sometimes it's really new, like we have the Lambda section. Many few people can do it in Thailand. And when they come to talk about it, many people are very, very, very interesting in them and come to talk after that and got a new idea about it.
I'll just say that the featured speakers in the rest of this track today, and we look to Ross over here, but I think pretty much every featured speaker that we have in the rest of the track is a speaker that has really honed their speaking skills in meetups and AWS-related conferences around the world. So hopefully you'll see in the rest of the track the fruits of development of the speaking and communication skills that some of the individuals have been able to build over the years by participating in these communities. So Jason, what about you? You've had some speakers that have flown across the globe to speak at your meetups in Dublin that I know about, and you've had a lot of active community members, and we're going to talk a little bit later specifically about voice, because Alexa is a big area for your group as well. So what do you think motivates these people to come along into that dark theatre and talk to your community? Talk to your community. It's quite an intimidating environment, the Button Factory, where you run these events, I would say that.
Absolutely, set the bar high. No, everyone's got their own motivations. There's kind of three main themes. One is you have an Amazon speaker generally. If you can, if somebody's in town, somebody from the organization, it gives validation. And it's great to have, and they're generally very accomplished speakers if they've passed the speaking credentials within AWS. The second one is, the trickiest one, is the sponsor speaker. That's always okay. So I don't want a sales pitch, and I don't want you to bore my members. So how do you get the sponsor? Because you're taking money off them on one side to pay for your beer and your food and your venue, but you don't want a sales pitch. So we work very closely with the sponsors to hone their pitch, that they have a use case, maybe a live demo, and there's only one sales pitchy slide they're allowed to have, which is we're hiring, the last slide, because that tends to be the motivation of the sponsors, is that they're generally hiring. The third category tends to be a startup, a local startup story. They may have $1, or they may be funded up to $50 million or whatever they've done. But a startup is always a good speaker to have as well. They're on the track. They've got something exciting. They tend to do a live demo as well, generally. They're pretty passionate. So that's the kind of the main themes we find. Trickiest definitely as a sponsor speaker.
Yeah, we're going to return to sponsorship with another question a little bit later on, because that is it's like a double-edged sword in running these meetups. You need to fund them. They are expensive. You've got food, drinks, you've got venues. You might have other overheads like videos that you want to make during the course of the meetups. All of that costs dollars or pounds or whatever your currency happens to be wherever you are in the world. And altruistic beliefs stop quite often when it comes to pulling out your credit card and paying for all this stuff. So we'll talk a little bit about sponsorship a little bit later on. Before we get on to that, I want to ask three of the panelists some specific questions about areas where they've gone beyond the simple, conventional, let's say, meetup with beer and pizza and a few speakers, because we've invited several people here because they've done things that are beyond that. They've really started to move the needle with other types of activities. And I want to go to you first of all, John, and I want you to tell us a little bit about the community day that was run in San Francisco. Describe it for the audience, because I'm sure a lot of people don't know what that is, and talk a little bit about how it played out and what the event was like that you ran.
The community day that we held in San Francisco was in June of this year. It was the first time we had a large community-sponsored, well, not really sponsored by Amazon helped pay for the cost, but it was all the speakers were from the community, leaders in the community, and we had people all the way from Seattle in the north to San Diego in the south. We focused just on the West Coast. We had people from about 20 different meetups in the West Coast. And it was a full-day event in San Francisco with 2 tracks, and we had 4 speech presentations in each track all day. It was well attended. We had more than 800 people who came to the meetup, to the community day, and we hope to have it every year. And it appears that this movement of community day is going to, catch on in other places also. I believe there's one that's coming up in the East Coast of the United States. There was one in Japan, and I believe there was one in Thailand too.
Yeah, there's also been one in Cologne in Germany as well.
Cologne in Germany as well. So this is completely, run by the community leaders. Actually, we had a group of AWS Meetup leaders who we met several times over the conference calls, and we had emails going back and forth deciding who should speak, what the topics should be, what should the focus be, what should the theme be, and we were able to. It was a great event. People were able to meet new people, learn new ideas. We even had people from Microsoft and Google, Azure and Google App Engine come and attend the meetup too. They probably wanted to learn something more about AWS. I don't know. It was a great event and very successful.
Great. If you're interested in organizing one of those events or participating in them around the world, check out the last slide that we're going to show here, which will tell you a little bit about how to get in touch with our community management team at AWS, and we can support you if you do want to run an event like that in another location somewhere else in the world where it hasn't already happened. We're really happy to help make that successful for you.
Yeah, it was thanks to Ross Barrick for helping me organize that, because the logistics and the costs were mind-boggling for me, but thanks to Ross's help, I was able to do it much easier.
Great, good stuff. Yeah, well done, Ross. So, Jason, branching. So you got your core meetup, but you do other stuff as well. Alexa, what do you call that one now? The Alexa
Devs.
Alexa Devs, Dublin. The workshops that you've run, serverless and some others. And also meetups for specific types of customers, which are not really the developer core, but are more executive focused. That's a lot of stuff. Can you talk a little bit about some of these other tangents that you've got running?
Sure, yeah. So a bit like AWS, the most important thing to us is the member. Like AWS, the most important thing is the customer. So we do a lot of polling of our members. What do they want? What are they looking for? And we have we have a raffle at the end of the meetup. You win a nice prize, a nice drone or an Echo or something like that. And we pulled a lot of information from the members. And one of the things they said is they wanted to do workshops, specific workshops around the theme of the meetup that we were hosting that evening. So, and another thing that happened was that the speakers who were coming into our meetups tended to be hanging around Dublin for the day. So instead of going to Temple Bar into a pub, why not get them to do a workshop? And we launched a workshop series. So every time we've got a key speaker like serverless guy or an IoT guy or Alexa specialist in town, we'll organize a workshop that day, maybe for about 40 or 50 people. So 40 is a good number. It's a big number, but we book a venue separate from the user group venue, and we organize it, proper Wi-Fi, there's good AV, and we host a workshop during the day. And that's been a great success for the members. They enjoy it, and it means that the guy coming in to do the presentation for the evening is really getting double value for his time traveling over to the meetup, and that's worked quite well. And we've got other activities going on as well. Like one of the missing areas around meetups, it's very developer focused, which is fine, and that's really the motivation. It's developer orientated. But there are a lot of enterprise users or business users there as well who are, it was just a little bit too technical for them, or the architecture was just diving too deep, and they were asking through this polling we were doing of our members, they were wondering about, could we do something more in the business side, or how do they integrate their business, how do they use some of the system integrators or the partners. So we did a series of breakfasts as well, and we do those on a quarterly basis. So it's a business breakfast for C-level executives who don't really feel at home at the meetup. It's not really for them. So there's all these kind of spin-offs you can do that make better use of your membership and better use of the speakers as well. And they're enjoyable and they're being quite popular.
Great stuff. Cool. Sebastian, the online component, that's really why we invited you to speak today, because you've done something unique there. I don't think there's another example of that worldwide today, which is operating at the same scale with such a high level of activity. Your Slack channel is something, of a behemoth really in terms of participation volumes. Often kick myself for not having better Spanish. I'd like to know more about what's going on in there. So can you talk a little bit about how you got started with that, how broad the participation is, whether you anticipated that it would be as successful as it has been?
Well, the idea came from Fernando, actually. He's an Argentinian living in UK.
Yeah.
And he started participating online in the meetups we did in Buenos Aires. We always did live streaming with a few cameras and microphones, really. And we didn't have much audience. I mean, everybody was in the meetup itself. But we always have like 10, 20 people joining from live streaming because they got caught up in transit or whatever, traffic, whatever, and they weren't able to make to the meetup. And that's how I met Fernando, and he told me, well, I'm an Argentinian, I missed this sort of community in Spanish, and I think there's an opportunity to grow this beyond what you're doing right now. So we started a small group. We created a YouTube channel to do all the live streamings of different meetups like Mexico and Buenos Aires from the same channel. So what we got was people from all over Latin America showing up at our live streaming. So we got like, 30, 40, 50 people at our meetup, but we got like 60, 100, 200 people watching the live feed. So we started doing a Q&A with the audience through YouTube instead of not only with the people present there. And things just got out of control. I mean, we keep growing. We started getting questions from people all over Latin America, Central America, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, different countries that we never thought of bringing a community there. And they say, okay, we wanted to do the same here. There's a room for doing this here. There's a community. And we started helping them out to setting up their first meetup, whatever we can do from Argentina, from UK. We gave them the ability to do live streaming on a YouTube channel, which already had 2,000-3,000 members. So they got their first meetup to be able to live stream to a much bigger audience than when they started. And then we felt the need to get live communication, not only during the meetups, because between meetup and another meetup, it would be a month, something like that. And we always wanted to share information and to chat with each other. So we created a Slack channel, a Slack account for AWS in Espanol. And we started small. We started with using it to coordinate the next meetup, seeing who's going to speak, gathering new speakers, sharing some sort of content. But then the community just took over. We got over 1,000 members right now. A lot of them came here to reInvent, so we have a separate reInvent channel so we can coordinate beers and dinners through the whole week. And what we did was we create different channels for each of the different topics that people want to talk about. So we have a channel for Docker, one for S3, one for RDS, or whatever the people need, Lambda, Alexa. And you get, we have an advantage that pretty much everybody in Latin America is between 2 or 3 time zones. So during working hours, pretty much everybody is online at the same time. Yeah. And you are already using Slack for your own job, so you got another channel there, and it's just really easy to switch and to ask questions, to ask about different problems you are having on your day-to-day job. And you get instant feedback, instant response from a lot of people besides what you usually would have in a meetup. You have people from all over Latin America and even Spain answering questions that people just post there, and it's instant feedback. And if we got some topic that keeps coming up and every other time, we will do an online meetup regarding that topic. Yep. So we created like this sort of webinars which aren't based anywhere. And in an online meetup, we'll have a speaker from Guatemala and one from Chile at the same time. And it's really easy to gather speakers and content when you are in a really small area where there are not many of those. Yeah,
that sounds good. So one of the things you're overcoming there is this question of sponsorship, because that's keeping your costs down. No venues, no pizzas, no beer, none of the stuff that normally drives the high cost or potentially high cost of running a large meetup. And I just wanted to ask the other panelists actually, how have you dealt with the costs of operating the meetup in Thailand? Is that how do you cover it?
Actually, we have a small amount of sponsorship from AWS, about $30. So what I do is, like we not a model of sponsor in Thailand because we want to feel like it's no commercial in the user group. Mm-hmm. It's more work in Thailand because anyone will come out for participate. And what we do about the cost is like when people feel the part of the group, they would like to join and help. Sometimes they bring some small food and ask me to let it in our food. And another way is I deal with the venue. Instead that they will cost us for the price. They like the counting our attendee and cost is for 1 per. And they also prepare the meal and the drink. Just make everything more cheaper. Yep. I think for this part, it depends on like each user group because on when I go on the community day in Korea, they have Asia Pacific. They also coming to share the different way that they come to the gathering. Some also have the sponsor way, and some also have the team way. They have to gathering way.
Yeah, so a few different approaches. What about you, John? How do you handle the cost of the group in San Francisco?
Well, I've been very fortunate, especially being in the Bay Area. Like I said, there's so many groups, and there are so many companies who are local who want to sponsor. Fortunately for me, I just depend on my company. I work for Intuit, and the main expenses are the food and drinks in the evening and the venue. Mm-hmm. And if those who are from the Bay Area know the traffic is so bad there. So I prefer to have the meetup in Intuit so I don't have to go fighting through the traffic. So Intuit gladly gives me a huge conference room, and they also pay for the food and drinks. But it's not fair on other companies to always just use Intuit as sponsor. So once in a while I do allow other companies to sponsor. Like I said, sponsorship not a big issue at all. There's so many companies who want to pay for the food and drink and the venue. They'll invite us to come to their company, and I help take turns. It's not a big issue for me.
Okay, I think Jason's already talked a little bit about his sponsorship model. So do you want to say anything else on that, Jason?
Yeah, it's a tricky model. You have to be careful on it because sponsors, by their very nature, they want access to the members. They're selling a product, so we're very clear that at the outset they won't get any access to the members' details. We keep that completely secret and private. So there's no lists of membership details given to sponsors. But there's no shortage of sponsors. They tend to come from recruitment is one big area of sponsorship. Another one is certification and training because this is the market they want to get certified. So we've been very lucky with some sponsors on a rolling basis on a 6-month or longer, and they've been quite supportive. But one of the things we've done, because we're independent and that we set up in a separate venue, it's not a corporate headquarters, we're invited on a regular basis to have it in Airbnb or have it down in Slack or have it in Intercom, and that would take away a lot of overhead. But we've kind of decided to stick to our guns and have it as more of a venue independent type meetup. So how do we fund that? So one of the things we've done is we've set up these enterprise breakfasts, as I described earlier, and they're sponsored as well. But if you put the term enterprise or corporate in front of it, you can charge about 6 or 7 times more for the sponsorship. And there is no problem that people will sponsor that every day of the week because everyone's selling something. And we use the resources from the breakfasts to fund the developer meetups. And that's kept us neutral. We don't seek any support from AWS, and that suits everyone's happy then. So it works quite well. So.
Great. So you'll notice we've got a microphone here over on your left, my right, which is for audience Q&A. If you do have questions, just come up to the mic and ask. To give you a bit of time to think about whether you've got questions, I've just got one more question to the panel, which is like a quick answer. One takeaway that you think would encourage members of the community that don't participate in a user group today to do so? What would be your 30-second or 20-second pitch? You should participate in an AWS user group because?
I would say the networking opportunity. Having the opportunity to share knowledge, share what you're doing, learn from others, from your peers, and also to get instant feedback of if your approach is the best approach possible or you can do better, to meet new people, to get together with friends, to I don't know. I would say definitely the ability to interact with other members of the community might be the best possible scenario for being part of a community.
Great. John?
Again, networking is a great opportunity at meetups. You can get rid of your shyness if you have any. Just go and ask people, talk to people. There's always so many interesting topics, even if it's not related to AWS, right? You can ask people, hey, where are you from? What do you do? And it opens up your brain to ideas you've never been privy to, and it happens every time you go to a meetup. It's such a great experience. You should go at least once if you haven't been to a meetup and see what it is that these people are talking about.
For me, I think if you join the community, it helps you to open more your world. Just like many people in our user group, they also because each community leader like us can come back and talk together, and we can also have the exchange culture. And so like Japan is AWS User Group, they build a game from the Lambda, from the traditional game, and this game is very useful because it helps our user to know more about the service, and it's good if they want to have the certificate exam. That's right. Yeah. I think it's really useful because it grows your network, not only in your country, but maybe farther than that.
Nationally as well, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, like here.
Yes.
Jason?
I think people have to be selective about what user groups they go to. I think if you look at meetup.com, people are members of lots and lots of meetups, like 40 meetups. Like, why would you be a member of 40 different meetups across the whole spectrum of DevOps and open source and every kind of cloud platform? I think you have to be selective, and the types of meetups you should go to are the ones that are on regularly, that meet on a consistent basis, that have an identifiable kind of theme. And also, you know, I think the networking is important. People, you know, everyone's part of a community. They enjoy meeting other people at the meetups, but be selective. And don't, if you're a user group organizer, don't expect people to come to every meetup you organize. Don't get kind of disappointed and they don't show up, because they're not going to go all the time. And that's why it's important to the themes, to have certain themes that attract a certain type of audience, and try and change the themes on a regular basis. Don't just have a generic AWS platform. Have something specific that people are interested in, and work with your members on the themes they want to hear.
Great.